What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another competitive deck tech series from Slumberlord Games. I'm Robert Abear, and today we have number 2 deck tech. It's going to be Ebony Prophet, or as what he's probably most commonly known as is Abdul. Definitely one of the boogeymen of the current Grim Block metas. Very powerful deck. He's very oppressive and does a lot of nasty stuff in the control variations. There's multiple ways to actually build this deck. What I have here is the list that actually just he got Ito. It was a Japanese player, just got 4th with it at the recent Open. It was the most recent Abdul list I could find, and it looked pretty interesting. Playing 4 colors. Usually it's I see a lot of Abdul players choosing to go the water route for the card draw, and like Cheshire Cat and a couple other things. But this list was actually pretty interesting. Even though he did play 42 cards, I like playing, I mean, he has more, he gives you a couple more room, a little bit more spaces for, some answers and some threats. But I like playing, as close to 40 as possible, just to increase consistency and, overall, the overall consistency of the deck for the most part. So as you can see, here we have Ebony Prophet, or Abdul, from the first. Figured out. Thanks for all the quick Facebook PMs telling me that if I double-clicked on the card, it actually flipped over. I'm actually really new to Lackey. So what we have is Ebony Prophet. He's a ruler out of the 2 Towers set. As you can see from his J activation, all of the common theme of the J rulers, the rulers/J rulers of the 2 Towers, all have 2 different J activations. One with their corresponding True Stone, which you can see here is you can pay 1 darkness, and you can only pay that ability if you control Gruspalesta, the Sealing Stone, or you would just normally just J activate for 2 darkness and 1 colorless. Now his just regular activation in the ruler side is he's able to tap and give a resonator -3, -300, which in itself is actually pretty good. Built-in removal is really good. Yeah, and if you flip him over, he's this is where he starts getting pretty nutty. He has a continuous, which literally turns off all the enter abilities of all your cards your opponents control. It's really powerful. And then his activation is used twice per turn. Is he literally causes a resonator or addition to lose all abilities until the end of turn, which as you can already tell would cause a significant amount of pressure and just turmoil with your opponent. So let's go ahead and dive into the deck list. As you can see, he ran 42 cards. Actually, let's start with the stone deck. He's running the 1 True Stone, the Gruspalesta, the Sealing Stone. It taps or rests for a darkness, or you can pay a darkness and tap it or rest it, and target J Resonator or J Ruler Resonator gains -200 until end of turn, -2 defense, and 200 defense. And then, of course, if you ever control 2 or more of the same name, you can banish both of them, which with this list you won't have to worry about it. So he also plays 3 green-white duels, 3 green-black duels, and the red-green duel as well. So pretty solid mana base he has going on for what he's playing. He starts off the list. He actually, when you look at the list, he's very spell heavy and not very. He lacks some decent threats, but he has him in a sideboard to kind of bring him in. But he's definitely a really control-oriented deck right here. So you have, like you've seen from the previous our first deck competitive deck series, you can see that they're running the vampire package. You get the lore, the tutors for Carmilla, Of course, Laura, the Blood Speaker, is basically a 2-drop tutor that searches any other vampire in your deck and puts it into your hand. She's a 300/300, blocks a lot of early drops. It's a nice little road bump until you get a speed bump until you get to you get to your Carmilla, which you usually wind up searching. Or with this, there's really not much else you're really searching for besides Carmilla. But going Laura into Carmilla is usually really strong. Carmilla, of course, is the 4-drop 800/800. Enter ability to destroy target non-vampire resonator. Now it comes into play. Basically takes care of any large threat your opponent may have played on you. And he didn't sideboard Alucard, so he usually doesn't get the effect, the secondary effect. So he's basically just playing it as a straight up 4-drop, come into play, kill your opponent's biggest threat, and reestablish board control, which is really fine. That's what control decks do anyway. So his biggest finisher by far is Mephistopheles, and it's one of the most troublesome cards in Abdul to deal with, outside of stoning and Carmillas and everything else. He's a 4-drop, 2 colorless and 2 darkness. Mephistopheles, the Abyssal Tyrant. He's a demon. He has flying and target attack. Target attack for your new players is this creature is able to attack unrested or untapped creatures or resonators, which is really powerful. And the fact that he has flying, he can be blocked by other flying creatures. So, and he's 1500/1500, solid 4-drop. One of the best 4-drops, especially for this type of decks like this. Simply because his next ability is continuous. Is when this card becomes a target by spells or abilities your opponent controls, he or she loses 500 life. So anytime he's targeted by like Thunder, Duel of Truth, Stonings, no matter what, if your opponent's trying to cast a spell or whatever, he's at least going to deal 500 points of damage to your opponent. Sometimes, usually more. And then, of course, his last ability is continuous. At the end of your turn, banish another resonator you control. Well, you never really have to worry about that, because with Abdul, going back to Abdul, as you can see, his activate allows you to target any resonator, yours or your opponent's, or in addition, and they lose all abilities until the end of turn. So what you're able to do is you're able to get an attack in. You're able to attack with Mephistopheles or whatever, and then before you're into turn, you just use Abdul's ability to cancel this last continuous ability, this continuous effect, therefore negating it and not having to sack another creature you control, sustaining your board presence throughout the turn. So really strong card. Pretty much designed for Abdul. I mean, they pretty much go together. One of the biggest finishers. It can end a game pretty quickly if he's not answered, especially if you get an attack in. So it's really strong, and expect to see a lot of, like, anytime you see Abdul, you can expect to see Mephistopheles. So next card, of course, is Oz the Great Wizard. There's another. If your opponent's playing green, you can expect to see Oz, just because he tutors up a bunch of amazing spells, and just a bunch of a solid cost 1 drops. He's a 600/600, which means he trades with a lot of different things. He dodges Thunder, which is actually really relevant in a lot of matchups. He's a good dual target because there's a lot of 500 power, 500 defense creatures, so he's able to kill them effectively. And overall, he's just a really solid 3-drop. So heavily played in, of course, the fairy tale list, being able to search out all the different 1-drops and Oz's magic and everything. So. But all in all, 2-drop. He has 2 slots for Oz the Great Wizard, which is a very solid, very versatile 3-drop that supplies you with answers. So plus it cantrips, and in essence cantrips, because he's replacing himself with another card. So then you have the typical green package of Elvish Priest and Gretel. Elvish Priest is pretty much for your Magic players. It's just your Llanowar elves. It's a 1/400, which actually is really solid because it blocks in like the rush matchup, it blocks the 300/300 pretty much all day, unless you're planning to use it for mana. But being able to play something on turn 3 is really solid. Or getting a turn 3 Carmilla is, if you have the mana stones, is really solid. Or a turn 3 Mephistopheles. Granted, at that point, a turn 3 Mephistopheles is usually pretty hard to deal with, regardless if you have to sack a creature, because you don't have to sack him. You have to banish another Resignator you control. So once Mephistopheles sticks, he's pretty rough. You have Gretel, of course, which is another way to ramp up. Basically turn on your 4 drops on turn 3. She's a 2-drop Fairy Tale Human. When she enters, you reveal the top card of your Magic Stone deck. If it's a Wind Stone, put it into your Magic area. So if you look at his deck, there's a very small percentage chance that you're not going to get the stone off of Gretel. So that means there will be games that you will flip the Gerbalesta you'll flip the Sealing Stone and you just won't get the ramp. But more often, 9 times out of 10, more often than not, you're going to hit one of these stones and you're going to immediately go from 2 to 3, which is really, really good when you're trying to play threats like Mephistopheles or Carmilla or some of these other threats. This other threat that I'll get to, like Guardia, the Guardian Dragon of Heaven. So Guardia allows you to basically search for your True Stone and then put it back on top. Or you can search for you can basically search for whatever whatever stone you want to fix your mana, and then Gretel if you want to. And then of course his activation, he taps to give something plus 400, which allows you to kind of do some interesting things as far as combat tricks go. But being able to search for that True Stone is really solid, because you want to be able to J-activate Abdul, because Abdul's 1,000, and he gets to start shutting down your opponent's additions and resonators. So very solid 3-drop. An 800 body on a 3-drop is really, really solid. And the fact that he allows you to kind of fix your mana for the next turn is really good too. So that pretty much covers all of the creatures in his deck. There's a couple more in his sideboard that I'll get to at the end here. But those are pretty much the threats. I mean, it's all about kind of getting a solid threat down, usually on turn 3, depending on what it is. And then backing it up with counters and removal, and yeah, just kind of going to town on that whole aspect. So let's go ahead and get the spells. He's playing 3 Stoning. We talked about it in previous deck techs, but it's pretty much premier. Pay 2, kill a creature. Pretty self-explanatory. Now he's running 4 Duels of Truth. Now, Duel of Truth is actually really solid when you're running things like Mephistopheles, because it's very, very, very... Actually, I don't even think there's really anything besides maybe the dragon that could possibly be bigger than Mephistopheles for the most part. So you're able to basically duel with Mephistopheles out. Basically says he's going to deal $1,500 power worth of damage to another creature. Or J Ruler, which is actually very, 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 very powerful. Being able to target a J Ruler, and it basically kills the majority of the J Rulers out there. So being able to answer a J Ruler for 1 mana is it's just really good. It makes Abdul really, really strong. Of course, then you have Thunder, which is pretty self-explanatory. If you're playing red, you're playing Thunder. If you're playing darkness, you're playing Stoning to Deaths. Then he's playing Dream of Juliet. Now, this card I love as a competitive player from multiple games, Magic and Kajudu and Versus and WoW and all the different games. I love modal spells. The more options I have, and the more decision trees and lines that I have to go through, it's awesome, because you never know what situation is going to arise, and being able to have multiple answers, is just amazing. So even though he's not getting to choose, up to 3 because he's not playing Juliet or Romeo. Being able to store an addition or cantrip or basically blink out a Resignator and then bring it back to the field as a way to protect their big threats is really, really, really good. So you land the Mephistopheles, for instance, and they go to remove it. You just blink it out. They still lose the 500 life, but you also get to keep your creature. So it's definitely a way to, granted you do not get the enter ability. That's one thing to remember in this. You won't get the enter ability because unless it states, just like Tell a Fairy Tale. Let me go and pull this card up. Like Tell a Fairy Tale, if you actually see it, it says this triggers its enter ability. So since Dream of Juliet actually does not have that rules text, you can't use it to search out another vampire or kill another creature or get another 1-drop spell or fix or ramp or whatever. So it doesn't work. At least that's what I've been told. And so if it works the other way, somebody please comment and say that it isn't that way. But from my understanding, is you do not get the enter ability. So if you did, that'd make this deck a whole lot more crazy. But even with that said, being able to have main deck addition hate is very, very strong, because there's oftentimes you don't want to be caught with your pants down per se, versus a lot of decks. Like, you don't want to have somebody turn to Athos you, and then next thing you know, you're staring down an Athos with Crucifix on it, and you're just like, all right, well, how do I answer this? Because now I can't kill it, and I can't even attack it. Now I just have a big old beater that's just completely just bashing my face in. So this allows you to kill additions. It gets rid of just tons of different things. And of course, cantripping is always cantripping. But yeah, being able to blink and protect your creatures or destroy additions is really solid. I don't know if 4 is maybe, like, if I was to cut a card, I'd probably cut one of the Dream of Juliets, just because, playing, like I said, going back to playing 42, I'd rather play 40 exactly. I'd probably cut a Dream, and maybe not one of the Guardians, but at least one of the Dreams. I don't know what the other card would be. But then he's playing, of course, any control deck. They're going to play Absolute Cake Zones and Zeke's. Cake Zones, if you don't know what Cake Zone does, is a 2-drop instant that counters target normal spell. And then if you control Hansel or Gretel, you draw a card. So it's basically it's a counter spell for normal things like chance, instant, standbys, all that stuff like that. Anything basically that's a spell on it. It's really, really, really good. Stops another way, basically just multiple ways to stop removal, to stop, just stop something that's going to, something you don't want to happen. It's basically just a counter spell. Then of course you have Zeke's, which is another modal spell. It's really, really solid. Since you don't have the Crimson Girl, there's a lot of text here. So since he's not playing Crimson Girl or Little Red, you basically just choose one. So it allows it basically, one of the modes is you target Resonator cannot be targeted by spells or abilities until the end of turn, or it counters one of your opponent's summon spells. You can counter one of their creatures, or Resignators you control get +200/+200 until the end of turn, or target player shuffles all magic stones from his or her graveyard into his or her magic stone deck, then shuffles all cards. It just refreshes. You just get to recycle everything in your graveyard and your stone deck and everything. So if they somehow use Bloody Moon to maybe blow up some lands. So other than that, Zeke's is really, really strong. He's not running Law of Silence, which I think if he's more worried about just sticking a fat creature and then protecting it, is what what basically this build is looking to do for the most part. Stick an early threat that your opponent has to answer, and back it up with with just tons of sexiness. So Abdul is just really good versus a lot of decks. I'm gonna go and jump over to his sideboard. I didn't do this in Deck Tech 1, but we'll do it for this one. Abdul has a lot. I'm not gonna say he's straightforward, but he has a lot of plays that just kind of map themselves off depending on what your matchup is. And once Abdul gets going, if you don't answer his threat, then your game's just over. There's not much you can do about it. He's just really that good. Then he is, like I said, him and Grim are pretty much the boogeymen of the current Grim block meta. There definitely are decks that are very strong contenders, but to not expect Grim or Abdul at any event you're going to go to, you're doing yourself an injustice by not preparing for either of those decks. So, like I said, there's multiple ways to build Abdul and Grim. But yeah, this one looked really interesting, and it won, and it got fourth place. So I figured I'd showcase this one. But as far as the sideboard, now one of the biggest strategies in Force of Will that I love coming from other games is being able to sideboard in a new ruler. This brings a whole new level and depth to the game that a lot of people haven't really touched. I mean, there's been a couple people like Matt and Chris and all them that have touched on it, but being able to sideboard in a ruler, any ruler for the most part, as long as you have of course, you have the corresponding mana bases, is really, really solid. So you have Sacred Princess of Guidance, right, which is also Lumia, the creator of Hope. Being able to J-activate it may take some work, but I know you can definitely get there with all the ramp that you have going on. She taps for 300. You don't have the True Stone, so you're going to have to pay the 2 light and 1 colorless. Taps again 300, which after you get an established board, versus a rush style deck, you can just you can start gaining that life back to kind of negate once you've kind of brick walled them and they can't do anything. So that's really good. But once you flip her, she is 1,000,000. And once per turn, you may play a card from your removed from the game zone as though it were from your hand. And then you can pay 0 to activate it. If there are no cards in your removed from this game, remove the top 3 cards of your main deck from the game face down. You may look at it. So it's basically like drawing 3 cards, and then you're getting a chance to play a card once per turn. Which, when you're playing a deck full of nothing but removal and ways to protect your threats, really, really, really solid. Then, of course, looks like a meta choice. He's playing Christie, the Wind Tracker. J-activates for 2 green and 2 colorless, which is a lot easier to pay. However, if your opponent controls a vampire, immortal, or werewolf resignator, you pay 0 to play a civilian instead. Which, let's be honest, you're going to run into Dracula. You're going to run into mono red werewolves or green red werewolves, or even black red werewolves. So very solid J ruler or ruler combo. Sideboard options. Pretty much from everything I've seen it played in a lot of the lists. They're at least throwing 1 copy of Christie in because, you don't need the 2 colors and 2 green. Because more often than not, when you sideboard it again, it's going to be flipping for 0. J-activate. It's kind of like a Library of Alexandria for you Magic players. You tap it to draw a card, but only if you control exactly 5 cards in your hand. And then, of course, her J activation is Helsing, the Vampire Hunter. She's 1,000,000. When she enters, when you J activate and she enters, target non-human J ruler or resignator loses all abilities until end of turn. At the end of turn, destroy it. So it just straight up answers a threat, which is really, really, really good. So they flip Drac. Next turn, you flip Helsing. You flip the Helsing and just say sorry. So. But those are the 2 rulers that he's playing in his sideboard. Very solid choices, I think, when you get your one for your rush matchups and everything. Maybe even control, being able to get the extra upper hand and drawing more cards than your control opponent. Card advantage is going to win you that matchup 9 times out of 10. And then, of course, Christie versus your werewolves and vampires. Very, very solid. He's playing the 4th copy of Stoning in the side, 3 rapid decays, which is pretty. You bring them again, of course, against rush style strategies. Being able to kill anything with 2 or less costs is really, really strong for 1 mana. Purifying Fire. It's going to either deal 700 to a player, or you're going to deal 1,000 damage to target human. So you're using it to get rid of certain humans. So it's really, really, really good, and it's another way to target a J ruler. So any of the human J rulers, you can target it and deal 1,000 for 2. So then of course you have the 4th copy of Absolute Cake Zone. Then you have 4 copies of Return to Stories. It's a 2-drop instant, pretty self-explanatory. It removes target nightmare or fairy tale from the from the game. A lot of nightmares in fire decks, fire-based aggro lists, and of course fairy tales are everywhere. You throw a stone at the majority of all the decks that are playing whatever, and they're playing fairy tales. So at least a couple copies, either Oz or insert, entire fairy tale themed deck. So there's his sideboard. It's really, really solid. I think. Oh, sorry, I'm missing 1 card. He's also running the 4th copy of Mephistopheles, which is, it's Mephistopheles. It's, I'll go ahead and jump back to it. He's running the 4th copy of Mephistopheles, so really, really strong. So yeah, that's Abdul. That's Ito's 4th place Abdul list, playing 4 colors, being red, green, black, white. Excuse me. And the True Stone, which of course is pretty good in itself, as far as knocking some defense down even in the late game. But overall, it's a very, very solid list. I've played with it a lot. I really like it. My numbers are a little bit different. I'm down to 40, but I cut 1 Dream. I cut 1 Dream and 1 Guardia, and I had upped Carmilla and Laura because they were just really good. I often found myself wanting to play the turn 3 Carmilla more than playing the turn 3 Mephistopheles, because I'd rather them have to answer my Carmilla or waste some removal on my Carmilla, and then them being kind of screwed when I do drop the Mephistopheles. But it's all in all, this version of the list is or the list he played. It's pretty standard if you really look at it. From if you had to choose the cards to kind of throw together, it's very solid. The numbers are really good. You can tell he's probably put a lot of testing into it, and yeah, I mean, solid deck is solid deck. He's just has the game plan of dropping a big fatty on turn 3 and protecting it and removing your opponent's guys. Solid game plan, got him to 4th, and yeah, feel free to test the deck out. I mean, I know you guys wanted a couple guys wanted me to do an Abdul list. This is one that actually seen some positive results, a lot of positive results. I mean, you did get 4th at a pretty large tournament. I forget exactly how many players were there. I want to say there were 60. I think it was in the 60 range. He got 4th. I'm not sure exactly what he got beat out by. I know there was a Grim Fairy Tale list, and 2. Geez, I can't remember. I know there were aggressive strategies. So I don't know, what he lost to, but I know from playing Abdul that it has a generally solid win percentage against the field, mostly due to having most decks having inefficient ways of dealing with Mephistopheles, or just Mephistopheles, and just having an Abdul J-ruled and just wrecking them and shutting everything down. So this is Ebony Prophet, or Abdul Al-Hazred, the Harbinger of Despair. Very, very solid control deck. If you're a control player, definitely check this out. Or check out other combinations like black, blue, green, white. I've seen red, black, blue, green. Basically, any other combinations I've seen Abdul do pretty well in, just because he's really strong. But they pretty much all follow the same. Drop a big fatty on turn 3, and then watch your opponent go, oh well, gotta answer it. But that's basically, like I said, that's Abdul though. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or whatever, feel free to drop them in the YouTube comments below, or you can comment. They'll be posted on Facebook, Twitter. Feel free to share. Feel free to share this stuff. The more people that get to see it, the better overall the community is going to be. And we all like competition, so we want to see everybody grow as players. Feel free to test the deck out. If you guys need any singles, like I said, Robert Abear owns CyberLordGames.com. Feel free to check us out. We have a pretty competitively priced list of singles. And yeah, if you like, comment, subscribe. Next time I'll probably do this with like my picture down here to cover up the watermark, or I'll broadcast it, so you guys just don't stare at a screen the entire time. But yeah, feel free to check out the website, CyberLordGames.com. Like, comment, and subscribe. I know I'm rambling on. Trying to think of anything else. Don't think so. But yeah, make a comment of what deck you guys want to see next. I'll probably wind up doing a Grim, and then probably some aggressive strategies from what I've personally kind of built, and some of the other teammates have kind of built, and we've been playing with. And I just wanted to get some. These are the two that were requested the most, so I just wanted to get these two out there, so you guys can check them out and whatnot. But other than that, yeah, this was fun. I love doing this stuff. I hope you guys enjoy watching this. I know they're usually like on like the 20 to 30 minute range or above, which I know can be long, but I like going in depth instead of just like spamming. This is this. I'm playing this, 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 and this. I like to kind of give a little bit more in depth. Look at all the decks. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think. And this is Robert Abear from Cyberlord Games with another competitive deck tech. Yeah, I'm signing out. So take it easy, guys. Hope you enjoyed.